I hope this simple plan of attack, making it so simple. If you look at other YouTube videos on div tags and creating a site, it's so confusing, it's so overwhelming with code and this and where do I put the div, etc., etc. This technique keeps it very simple. So let's just review a few things. So I have a simple mock-up, okay? This mock-up could have been created in Photoshop or Illustrator or Fireworks, which I suggest you use. Then you can plan out the width and the height of the div tags. Now, in this particular case, we didn't physically do that on our mockup, but we could have done that to make it so simple. We could have said this div tag is X and Y height, position, etc., etc. But I'm going to show you how to do this inside of Dreamweaver from scratch. So let's go back to our Dreamweaver file. Now, what I typically do, and this is a good habit to get into, as you're developing different stages of your page, don't work on the same page. Get in the habit of save as, file save as. So we're going to call this version C. Now, if you want to make it more descriptive, that's totally up to you. You know, page C, page D, with div, without div, with rules, without rules. You can make your file names as descriptive as possible before giving it to the client. Okay, so again, my comp is in the way here. I don't want to be distracted with my comp. So I'm going to go to View, Tracing Image, and say Unshow or Uncheck. Okay, now let's think about this for a second. Now, this file here we don't need. We're going to close this file. Okay, so let's understand what's happening here. We have divs inside of a div, inside of a div, inside of a div. So let's look at this very, very carefully. Okay, so these div tags here, from here to here, go inside of branding div tag. Okay, this information here goes inside of main content div tag. Then the footer is the last div tag. So how can we do this? How can we wrap our selection inside the appropriate div tags? Here's my simple proven technique of how to do this the simple way. Now, if you're a fan of my previous videos, and I have 100 plus videos on this channel here, I'm a big fan of copying and pasting. Therefore, I don't have to reinvent the wheel. So what's in it of this div tag going to be? It's the branding div tag. We're going to double click that, double click copy, double click copy. Now, before I create the div tag, what goes inside this div tag? This goes inside the div tag. Everything from here to there goes inside the div tag. Now, it helps if it helps you to see this better. Command key plus, I can zoom in. Command key minus, I can zoom out. Command key plus, command key minus. Of course, Windows, that's control plus or control minus. So I'm going to select this content here. I'm going to select the content from here to there. Okay, so branding, logo, site nav, site tagline, all goes inside the branding tag. We double click the word brand and we copy it. Therefore, if we go up to our layout tab here, the simplest way to do this is layout tab. Go to the layout tab and click insert div tag. And we're going to paste. Copy, paste. So therefore, this content, site nav, site tagline, logo is all inside the branding tag. How do I know that? Because it says so right here. That information is inside the branding tag. Simple, 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 simple. Let's zoom back out of here. Okay. Now, before we go further here, I want to share with you a production technique of how to do floats the correct way. I don't want to tag the actual div tag with a float. We're going to do the float inside of a class tag. How do we do this? Well, class tags begin with a period. I can call the class tag anything I want. I can call my super duper class tag. I can call the spaghetti face tag. I can call the Al Pacino tag. What are we going to call it? Simply left float, right float. So we're going to create a class tag because classes are defined and classes are assigned. I'm going to define what the class does. I'm going to assign it to something. So I'm going to come down here to my new CS rule and make a new class. Now, by default, class is selected. Classes begin with a period. Now, I don't want to confuse you here, but if you use the class, hold on, and you don't have to type in the period symbol. If you pick class here, Dreamweaver will put the class period there for you. But to keep this simple, I just want to share with you, I'm going to type in the period. So we're going to type in period, and we're going to call this LEFT FLOAT, left float. Now understand I'm calling it physically left float and not float left. And I'll explain why in subsequent videos. So left float, and I hit OK. Now based on these choices, I want you to dialog box. These are my choices based on these choices. Category box, we're going to float this to the left. Now there's going to be no padding, no margin. I simply want my class called left float to float to the left. And that's what it's going to do. Now class tags should appear above the ID tags. Let's make new class tags. I'm going to go new CSS rule. I'm going to type in class. I'm going to type in right float, camel case, right float with a capital F. Again, these are totally made up names, just like my div tag IDs are made up names. But call it something logical that makes sense to you. Okay, what does right float do? Based on these choices, right float floats to the right. Genius. Simple, simple, simple. Okay, now let's go back and create the rest of our div tags. Okay, now, just like this information goes inside of branding, information from here to here goes inside of main content. So we're going to double click main content and copy, Command C, Control C or Windows. Okay, so we copy that Command C. Okay, now what goes inside the main content div tag? All this information goes inside the main content div tag. I'm going to select the content. In order to affect the content, I need to select the content. Software Rule 101. In order to affect something, you've got to select something. How simple can it be? Okay, come up here, insert div tag. What's the name of the tag? Paste, copy, paste. Main content. Then this last tag, I'm going to zoom back out of here for a second. This last tag, double click, copy, because this goes inside the footer tag all by its lonesome, all by itself. I come up here to insert div tag, and I type in paste, copy, paste. Simple, simple, simple. So if you look at your code for a second, you will see here that there's my CSS rules, and here's my div tags. Everything is inside of the wrapper tag. Wrapper tag starts here. Wrapper tag div tag ends here. Now this is my tracing image. The tracing image does not get published in a web browser. If you try to publish it in the web browser, it's not going to work. It's going to have no idea what you're talking about. Okay, just want to share that technique. Incidentally, part of the reason I can see my code bigger for those of you older than 40, which I fall into that category, is under preferences here. We can go to the font and we can change the size of the code. So as an example, if you really can't see this, we can make this 36 points. Now, my eyes are bad, but they're not that bad. So we're going to go back to preferences, and I'm just going to change that back to, say, 14 pixels. I can see that pretty simply. Okay, so that's the name of the code. Actually, for demonstration purposes, so you guys see this a little bit better, let's make that 18 pixels. Okay, now let's go back to design mode. Make it change, save a change. Okay, so in our next video, now I'll create the div tags and create CSS rules for these div tags. So stay tuned. Please subscribe, guys. I'm teaching some very valuable, simple techniques of how to create a site here. So benefit from this by following me on Facebook. A link for that will be in the description of the tag. It's simply facebook.com/think, learn, earn. Subscribe to my video, like my video. Talk to you soon.